Ladies and gentlemen, do you like sacrificing pieces? Do you like playing attacking chess and ripping the soul out of your opponent? Then you have a lot in common with today's protagonist, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. And this video is all about him sacrificing.
Sacrifice the Rook! Because you've sacrificed, that's right, you guessed it, the Rook!
Yes, so Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, sacrificing the rooks. This was played a while ago. This is a game he played. I'm calling it the Shakhriyar Mamedyarov Immortal. He sacrifices a bunch of rooks. So he's playing Daniel Darda, who's one of the best Grandmasters from Belgium, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov being from Azerbaijan. And the game was d4, knight f6, c4, and g6. And from here, the game can continue in a few ways. If you play knight to c3, that can lead to Grunfeld or King's Indian. We can still get like a double fianchetto from black. But instead, Daniel Darda plays h4. Yeah, okay. We're going for some wild stuff here. Bishop to g7, knight to c3, and now knight to c6. An interesting move from Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. Not the most common move, because you are baiting this move. You are baiting here, you are baiting d5, but then you put your knight into the center, and then if you continue to attack, your knight continues jumping forward. So something like this, and then if you continue to try and attack me, I just land up on g4. So instead, knight to f3 gets played after some thought, castles, and now d5, because you've taken away the e5 square. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. Knight to b4. The best move, it's the only safe square for the knight. And now g3. g3 is an inaccuracy from the computer. And the reason it's an inaccuracy is because you've played h4. Now, long term, your king will be weak on this side of the board because you've played h4. So if you have a castle, it's a kind of weird thing because you're going to leave your king very exposed, and you can't go the opposite way because then you are walking into a heck of a lot of trouble. So g3 is not a very good move here. There are some moves preferred by the engine. One of them is e4, which I don't understand why it doesn't get played. Another one is a3, asking the knight where to go, and then, bishop to g5. Something like that. So g3 doesn't make a whole lot of sense. e6. Now it's given a question mark, but it's in typical Mamedyarov fashion. You are striking back at the center, and we might even play c6 and stuff like that. So, we get now a3, kicking the knight back to a6, and now bishop to g2, ed5, cd5, and rook e8. Now the rook gets the whole open file. Sorry, I understand the move feedback. It's all on, and it might be a bit, worrying, and it spoils the move in advance. But not really. And don't worry about it not being the best move. It's a perfectly fine move. You are seizing the entire open file, and that's what you get for playing here ed5, cd5. You get that imbalance. White does have two central pawns, but black's got an open rook. Castles by white. But castles into might be some problems here if this bishop ever gets removed. So you need to keep this bishop on the board, probably. Knight to c5. And now if you continue to attack the knight, they're going to jump into e5. And you can't play e5 at the moment, so we need to come up with a game plan. And here Daniel Darda finds a brilliant move, really. Not according to Chess.com Game Review, but he finds the move d6. It's the best move, because it just disrupts black's coordination. You've still got these three pieces that you need to develop. And you'll say, but white needs to develop these pieces. Yeah, but white has an easier time doing that. This move, how does this bishop get out? Because you can't really fianchetto. So if you take, then we get like this. And then you really struggle to defend this pawn. This light squared bishop struggles and stuff like that. Don't worry about it saying this is an inaccuracy. So instead, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov plays c6. Which, it's not a great move, but you've got plans of expanding on the queen side. The bishop's going to struggle to get out for just a moment. But now we get knight to d2. Which, looks like you could push e5. The knight could go here, but it's a very strange move because you're going backwards. White's got the initiative here. They should be going forwards. What's going on here? Okay, hang on. I think, yeah, my screen did that weird thing. Okay, hang on. I just need to, wave it all away. So, c6. Here, the engine much prefers, rook e1. Rook b1 to, play b4. Bishop to f4. One of these moves. Something more active. Knight d2, you're, bringing a piece back. And now a5. from Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, who up to this point has a huge time advantage in this game. It's irrelevant to the overall scheme, but it just shows with how much confidence he handled this position. That's why he's 2734. Daniel Darder, he's much better now, he's 2600, but he's only 2580. Both gems. And he plays b3. Another really nothing move, really. You need to be active, you need to be taking advance. You're the one who played like move 3 h4. And here, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov finds the best move, the only move to really keep black in the game, or give them a something tangible advantage. Rook e6, great move. And now you've got to try and defend this pawn, haven't you? You've got to play something like knight there. I can't think of other ways to defend it. I suppose you can move your knight anywhere and then your queen defends it, but then we start really attacking it, and we bring the pieces back and we corral this pawn. So Darter was like, I'm not going to defend it. I'm going to play queen to c2. And then when you take, I'm going to hit you with this move. And, the time you're investing to win this pawn and move the rook again, I'm going to get my pieces out and really start an attack. So, rook e6. And now bishop e3, targeting this knight. Now, how are we going to defend the knight? Where can it really go? It's under lots of pressure. So we have to play bishop f1, bishop f8 rather, not bishop f1, bishop f8 to defend it. How can you have 4 pieces on their starting squares after 17 moves? And now we hit the rook, which is a blunder. It's a big mistake according to the engine, but it's logical. You're forcing the rook back. And now, rook e8, the best move. But now black's better. Because the whole idea was to play b4, which is the best move. And, we skip ahead. What you're looking at is if, takes, after something, you won't have takes straight away. Will you? White takes. If we get something like this, with the knight still hanging, even if the knight goes back, somewhere, where can the knight go? Somewhere like here. What? Knight a6. Something like this. This is just better. This is pretty good for white, and maybe this is what he calculated. Continue like push pawns and get his knight in there and stuff like that. But b4 runs into d5. My knight's hanging. Well, your knight's hanging. And now the bishops see each other, which is also another thing you have to work out. But does this really work? Does it work? Because, what about bishop takes c8? Queen c8? And now if I just remove this knight. Yes. Shakhriyar Mamedyarov saw this. So the bishops stare at each other, and this knight's hanging. But we ignore all of that, and we play queen h3. The queen disappeared. That king is dreadfully exposed, and the threat is very simple. Knight to g4 and checkmate. So you've got to stop knight to g4, or stop h2 being mate. So we've still got these bishops seeing each other, so we play a reasonable move, knight d2, because we're going to get back to f3. Bishop takes c5, b takes c5, and knight to g4, knight to f3. Ladies and gentlemen, you've waited long enough. This game ends in 4 moves. 3 of them are brilliant moves, and 3 of them are rook sacrifices. Now you're thinking in this position, how is it possible to sacrifice a rook? Well, ladies and gentlemen, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov saw all of this, and he saw that in this position, the only winning move for black, rook e3, and he sacrifices the rook. The threat is very simplistic. I'm going to remove the defender of h2, and it will be checkmate. And if you take, I take, threaten mate, your queen, and your rook, and your very existence. Okay, simple. And if we remove the knight, then that becomes mate. So we just give the king an escape route. We play like rook e1, which gets played. And now, if you take the rook, I can take back, and this is no longer checkmate. Oh, sorry, my computer's lagging. I hope it's not affecting the board. Because queen h1 is no longer checkmate, the king escapes. And this is not mate either. So we go all the way back. Rook e3, rook e1. So, we know that the king's going to try and escape that way. So the plan's very simple. we just play rook ae8 and sacrifice the rook again. It's still hanging. It's still there. And again, you can't take the same threats. It's still not threatened to remove the knight, and then queen h2 and queen h1 will be mate. So, Daniel Dartler here finds queen d3. He's going to sacrifice his queen, because his idea is takes, and then if all of this happens, he thinks that this endgame is holdable for white, and it might be. It might. It's losing according to the engine, but practically, human-wise, you might be able to coordinate the pieces against the queen. But that's not what Shakhriyar Mamedyarov had. So he plays rook takes d3, the only brilliant move to break the sequence. E takes d3. Now, how many of you would auto-capture on e1? No, not Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. No, he had a bet with someone that he could sacrifice the rook 3 times on the same square. Rook e3 again. And it's the same idea. If you do nothing, I take the knight and I mate you. If you take, then I take with the knight and I fork you. So we get, so here Daniel Darter resigns. Because obviously if you go here, you get mated. If you go here, knight takes, pawn takes, and then I take, and then I take, and then you lose everything and you lose the endgame. What a win from Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. We don't have to care about the endgame. We get to this point where it looks like all hope is lost. He's just down 2 points of material. Surely it must be beneficial for white. No. My friends, rook e3. And then after rook fe1, rook ae8. And then we take the queen. And we play rook e3 again. Double exclamation mark. And the game is won. This was the Shakhriyar Mamedyarov Immortal Game.